Is this the low? And if not, is the low close? This is the market update. I will answer all these questions. I am your host, Bill Noble. As you can see, I'm wearing my relaxed shirt because I'm just coming from the YouTube member podcast where I can say with confidence that every time I listen to the prophet, as she has been called, I feel much better about what may happen if these chimpanzee fools decide to actually hit the market again. As levered players liquidate and as people run for the hills and everyone is afraid of crypto winter, the Spartans of Patreon and the followers of the prophet will undoubtedly be scooping this up, or as Arthur Hayes said, back up the truck. Back it up. It is time. Now, to put this in context, we are under the influence of the planet Pluto, which can be an aggressive, dark planet, moving into a section of space where it was during the American and French revolutions. So this is a time for change, let's put it that way. And naturally, as you enter the point of change, people must, as Toby said, face their fear. Naturally, that's what's been going on in crypto, as, you know, bricks are raining from the sky, and we're sitting here with our umbrellas wondering if we're going to get conked on the head. Honestly, I know that's how you feel. That's how I felt prior to the YouTube member podcast. Now, we discussed, believe it or not, the tactical picture. Where do we think things can go and what coins will or will not dip? You might be surprised that there are coins that will not dip, that are being hoovered up now as we speak. I think the obvious play is TAO because it never went down. And we've talked about this before. Big Rich, the one-man hedge fund, one of many, a Spartan colonel in the Patreon group, has been talking about for a while. And I knew TAO was going to launch because Toby sent me a video about basically a guy saying that, you know, your best hope for decentralized AI is TAO. And he feels about TAO now the way he felt like Bitcoin back in the day. So join the Spartans and get the hint on stuff because we've got, you know, pretty much more than one psychic in the group. Of course, we know who the top psychic is. Anybody in the YouTube member area knows that, you know, now is the time to hoover stuff up. Everybody's got thumbnails. You know, it's the end of days. It's, you know, country A and country B. Not doing it. Not doing it. We are shopping. Some stuff may not go down anymore. Some stuff might, because if there's collateral out there that has to be liquidated, or if people have to do any more panic selling, blah, blah, blah. You know, we discussed what could go down. Here's a hint. Most of the collateral is in ETH. But again, any more downside in ETH and any move below 4K could potentially be a low for the ages, a generational low. Toby has her own way of saying that. I just like going with generational low because that's a great legacy nerd and YouTube hyperbole title, although this is a good time to remind you that this is not financial advice, that this is an opinion show. Kind of have to do that these days. So let's take a moment to think about the news from BlackRock today. So BlackRock comes out and says, you know, we may expand Bitcoin and the crypto market rapidly. Notice you have not heard from any of these big guys, as we have noted last night on the late night market updates, which we hope you are enjoying. Not a word. And these guys are undoubtedly going to make some kind of announcement. Speaking of an announcement, Roger V, right, who is also known as Bitcoin J. I'm currently going back over his book. Big fan of the Antivirus Project, by the way. I've actually gotten a DM with him a couple times. Uncle Sugar is going to stop pushing him around, right? They offered him a settlement. They dropped the stuff in court. And one has to remember, even though it may not be a favorite right this second, there's Bitcoin, there's private Bitcoin in Zcash. And when Roger Ver gets on the stage and does his victory tour like Ross, what's he going to be talking about? Bitcoin Cash, privacy. He's going to sound a lot like young John McAfee. What do you think? That privacy narrative, I'm sitting here looking at a Patreon Platinum report that will go out soon. That's got 4 or 5 new privacy projects, as well as 4 projects that are dormant, waiting to go somewhere. I'll give you 2. The dormant project that could go somewhere is DIA. That's number 4 on the list. And one thing that I think is really interesting is a private layer 1 for real world assets, which I have not looked at, is DUSK, right? Remember all these trades? Like everyone's like, hey, Zcash. I saw some, the antivirus has its own little decentralized exchange that they built on top of the Orderly network. They added Zcash with 10x leverage just in case you can't get in enough trouble these days. And Jessica, thank you for becoming a loyalty badge emoji member. People with the $5 emoji badge membership can, be seen by the Eagle King and get priority on shout outs and comments. So Jessica, we welcome you and we thank you for supporting the channel. So at the end of the show, Toby goes about 2 altcoins, one of them, which I already talked about, TAO. The other one I would encourage you to go check out. She just kind of looks at me and goes, yeah, a big whale is accumulating this. And I'm like, because it's interesting because the Gann model didn't think that particular coin or TAO had any more downside. There's a lot of dispersion out there. Like Toby was like, yeah, this big coin, the model might be right. This bigger coin may have another heave, but some of these other coins may not, right? Like, an excessive test of the lows in, say, Solana and XRP. Will it happen? Will it not happen? I don't know. But after I listened to Toby, particularly if you're going to have some coins that are going to outperform, in other words, it's not going to be just Zcash and TAO. If they try to continue to press this lower, you may have a growing list of coins that outperform. I would imagine you want to pay very close attention to those particular coins. Do you have to be a genius to do well in crypto? What does YouTube tell you? Well, YouTube says you can't do it. What do I tell you? I don't know. I tell you can do it. Toby has her own just incredible pep talks. They're not even pep talks. They're like, I don't know. They're like philosophical drops for real. So now is the time to be as strong as humanly possible. Because with this Gann-based Pluto move, you have to face all your biggest fears. All your biggest fears. Now, of course, today, laughably, my stupid story was that, I was standing in Costco in line and realized that I didn't have the correct payment card and had to do some juggling in order to figure it out. Now, I didn't find that particularly pleasant, although that is nowhere near what some people went through with getting liquidated. But I just kind of said to myself, oh, yeah, this is a Pluto check, right? It's a little check, snap the glove on kind of check. Everyone's had their check with this market. And even if they do another one, who cares? Who cares, right? I mean, coverage of the crash, Crash explained. You should see the views on these things, right? Everybody is, and I say, I don't care how many times I have to say this. Everybody is so wound up with the minutia of what just happened. They are clearly missing the major opportunity that is before you. Like I said, the generational low, right? Now, when you have ETH back at 4,100 and you have Bitcoin at 114, I don't mind telling you, in the revised roadmap in Patreon Platinum, okay, in the Patreon Platinum area, Bitcoin is actually right where it's supposed to be at 114. It's supposed to be at 114 today. So that's very interesting, right? It's also very interesting that, again, what Toby had to say about, any attempts to hit this market going forward. It's worth viewing. It is. Now, if you can't, you got to start thinking about stuff like Zcash. I can tell you something where the model really, at least this tactical model did not work, right? It said Zcash might go down to 200, and Toby and I both agree that's probably not happening. And if it does, it's Christmas. This privacy narrative is not just some BS one-off trade. And this stupid liquidation moment where, again, everyone had to face their fear, the ultimate fear trade, right? What did we have to face before the revolution? Because that's what, that's what this Pluto move is all about, right? It's about the revolution where crypto ascends as a disruptive force. And I think it's fair to say disrupts what? Disrupts the things that can make you, as Toby would say, suffer, right? In other words, if the world is going to get disrupted by AI, you better be in line with, you better have your Spartan shield. Your Spartan shield is crypto. And in many ways, you can throw a dart at a dartboard, which is another Toby thing, and find an altcoin, which is funny because everyone thinks altcoins are dead. Altseason can't happen, right? And it's pretty obvious that there are leading indicators that you can have a major altcoin rally, aka Zcash, aka TAO, stuff going straight up. The market is currently voting on what's next. And what's everyone focused on? The FTX repeat. The FTX repeat, right? And the big guys are opening their mouth. Citibank CEO says we're talking too much about stablecoins and not enough about possibly somehow tokenizing deposits, okay, for faster movement of money and faster, compliance. No idea what she's talking about there. But again, Wall Street knows that they're on the clock. And anybody who makes an announcement now could have a dramatic increase on price of whatever it is they're announcing. Like if it's an Ondo project, etc. See, this is what I love about the shorts feed, right? Corn Plum 80 says this is total nonsense. Hand of God says retail got scared and they crashed out. Sir, that is exactly what happened. Again, I would refer you to all the great Toby speeches about fear. I can't possibly do it justice. Check it out. Elon is getting interested in Bitcoin. Elon interested in Bitcoin. Elon is out making comments. Big players know about value investing. Big players know, and you should too, after watching them hit this market and have them bring it back. Remember yesterday, I said, you know what? You really don't want to see a failed rally. And didn't it look like a failed rally at 8 o'clock this morning? Didn't it? I mean, this morning at 8 a.m. with Bitcoin down 4%, it looked like it was going to zero. Like, oh, this thing is just going to get smashed again. And they can bring it. They can bring it. I can with a degree of confidence say that with this Pluto move, that you may see altcoins start moving up from the bottom. You may see altcoins start moving up as this liquidation trade reaches its zenith somewhere else, right? And if you got any money, you need to start thinking about the top projects and what's next. I mean, Toby said privacy was a massive 2026 theme. And what is Zcash telling you now? Like, how big is 2026 going to be if Zcash can 3x? And Roger Ver is going to be back on the tape. In other words, you know, there's Ross, the guy who got in trouble for Silk Road, and he had kind of a nice victory tour, and Ross deserved that. But I mean, Roger Ver is at a whole other level, right? He's like, hey, you know, I got some criticisms about Bitcoin. I want to talk about privacy. I want to talk about, you know, Uncle Sugar not being nice to people, right? I mean, trust me, he's got plenty to say about sovereigns and the way they can behave sometimes, right? A lot of this stuff is very much out there in the headlines, and it doesn't matter until it does, aka Zcash and TAO, right? TAO is the AI trade coming to crypto. So if you think this is nonsense, well, gee, what's nonsense? $4.5 trillion for NVIDIA? Gold and silver up only with crypto crashing? Are you crazy? Right? It's all the same trade. It's all the same trade, for God's sakes. Right? And then, you know, you look at this, you know, like Zcash, for example. Like if you look at an 89-minute chart of Zcash, right? All you got yourself, all you got for all this drama was kind of like a box. Really, if you exclude this idiotic thing down to 160, you get a box. And, you know, standard technical analysis, to be fair, standard crypto technical analysis would call for a retest of these wicks before moving higher. And in some cases, that may be possible, right? Crypto Crazy becoming a member, the $4, the $5 crowd. Sir, we appreciate you getting your emoji. You can also use all the emojis that, you know, you see the members banging away with. We appreciate you guys for pushing the channel. Zcash breaking Lux Algo trend lines here. You know what I'm saying? And even if you do get a dip, the train has left the station. And to think that you're missing out, you're not, because Zcash is barely even in the top 50. This is something we covered last night. Like, what is the new top 50 going to look like? Roger Ver is going to be out on Bitcoin Cash. Okay. Toby weighed in on that. I gave her some downside targets in XRP, and she was like, really? XRP can go that low? XRP at $2.50. XRP should be at $4, in my opinion, especially with Citibank and all these banks on the tape talking about, well, yeah, this is my idea for how we should do crypto. Well, guess what? No one cares about your idea of how we should do crypto. Crypto is going to decide. We are going to decide how Citibank or whoever does crypto, right? I mean, the only thing that bothers me is the final liquidation of any collateral. That's it. And the reason I bring that up is because that's not real selling. That's not somebody going, you know what? I think this market is going lower. No. That is somebody who is forced to sell, which was a hallmark of FTX, which drove Bitcoin to 16K. And I don't mind reminding you that when Bitcoin was at 16K, everyone's like, well, don't touch it. It's going to 10. And one of the themes, you know, Toby has this very elaborate way of describing how she does her shopping. right? Needless to say, it's different from the minutia that we all spend our life chasing, right? The generational low. Like, where were you when the generational low continues? Okay. In other words, will you remember this many years from now? Okay. So let's talk about what the market has completely gotten wrong. This whole idea about tariffs, right? Tariffs are everywhere. You know, the sovereign headlines are everywhere. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Arthur Hayes told you today that the Fed has ended quantitative tightening. It's over. It's done, right? The Fed is no longer shrinking its balance sheet, and they're going to have to push liquidity into the system at some point, particularly after you get any kind of jobs number that is not great. I mean, you realize that some of these sovereign employees who are working for Uncle Sugar may not get back pay. They have effectively been laid off pending a rehire. That is going to put a substantial dent in the labor market. Because like I said, when they go back to work, are they going to feel like spending like crazy? Because you don't know how long this thing's going to be closed. It's just one example, right? Labor market disruptions, AI, robots walking around the office. This is coming. This is happening, right? And what is everyone focused on? Oh my God, well, let's do 3 live streams and let's dive into the on-chain data as to who sold and why wrong, right? I'm looking at it here. Like, somebody made $192 million on the down move. So what? Crypto market cap is going from 4 trillion to 10 trillion. That was the estimate for total crypto market cap from the company I worked at back in 2020. They were thinking 10 trillion total market cap for crypto. And in a lot of ways, that number was considered crazy. Like, oh yeah, well, let's get our attention, right? Is 10 trillion really crazy? Is 2xing crypto market cap after what happened with AI and you have with this graph? Okay. So this is the New York Federal Reserve repo data by counterparties amount of accepted bids. Okay. So really what this is like the amount of emergency money that's on hand at the Fed. Obviously, people have been drawing it way down, right? You know, because everything's fine out there. Yeah. Okay. So the conclusion is the Fed could restart printing in the coming months, and they basically have to. There's no way to replenish the emergency fund. We don't even know he's using the emergency fund. They're going to have to print for the emergency fund. High-powered money is going into the system. Why do you think stonks are up only? Why do you think gold is up only? You know, there are things about the gold market that make it go like that. But, you know, how is that not a signal? How is that not a signal that the altcoin universe can take off? I mean, if you can have a rally in silver, like I realize now, you know, silver at $17 was junk. Silver at $52 is a must portfolio add. Silver has an industrial use case, but it's a rock. It's a rock, right? So if you could have everyone buying a rock like it was the greatest thing ever, what happens if you get ETH for cheap? Like you could have gotten ETH this morning below 4K. And if there's some that occurs around this Pluto time, let me just give you some, let me just tell you something. If they want to give you this market down like it was again this morning, just take it from them. Just take it from them, right? Because, you know, everyone is afraid. And when everyone is afraid, that's when you need to be brave. And of course, that's really easy to say because this market this morning down 4% was like, oh my God, you know, this red ink, I got it, you know, I'm getting a sunburn from all this red, right? A sunburn from all this red. It's not. It's It's real, but it's an illusion. It's an illusion of fear. Grandpa Keeter, a Spartan colonel, says, how you doing? Can we check Mantle Network? Sir, for you, we can check anything you need. For our Spartan colonels, that means they have been members with us for a year on YouTube. We appreciate that sincerely. Okay, Mantle, a Coinbase coin. Okay, so I think that anything that's moving like this is doing a consolidation to continue moving like this, right? So you get these like Lux Algo topping signals at the premium zone. You get a consolidation. There's nothing wrong with consolidation. Nothing, right? So this looks like consolidation mode. You know, if you do some basic Fibonacci work on this, and this was true in Bitcoin and ETH, you went to the 62% retracement at $1.46 on the wick down. Classic, right? Now, to get going on the upside, it probably has to hold above $2. And that is everywhere. Okay. The hand of the Almighty becomes a loyalty badge member. Sir, welcome. A Better Shot Inc. says, I made it. Hand of the Almighty says, look at VIX. So fear is high. Fear is still high in equities. Now, when it comes to fear in stonks, there's good reason for fear in stonks because things are just very, very overvalued, even though this AI trade and this build out is not a bubble. It's just a giant building project. Like, I don't even know how they're going to build the electricity plants to power everything. Zero Hedge was making fun of that today, right? Every time VIX has gone up to these levels, there's been a spike higher and it comes back down. That said, you do have to be careful because when VIX does have these big up days, they can have more big up days. You know, the biggest risks to crypto, I think, is any type of correction or growth scare in stocks. But, you know, the Fed needs to make conciliatory language. Anything that happens in legacy that causes crypto to go down is a gift. Let me say that again. Anything that happens in legacy that causes crypto to go down is probably a gift. And I definitely appreciate, like, if you want to look at S&P, QQQ, VIX, NVIDIA, you know, you want to look at this stuff to another extent. You want to look at gold or silver. That's great. And I did a lot of that. And that comes very, very easy to me. Like, oh, I want to immediately go look at macro stuff. But as Hand of the Almighty does say, stocks are steady. Freaking out about legacy anything, which includes tariffs or any of that stuff, has not paid. You'd be selling or hedging into the abyss, right? These people who got liquidated, you know, there's all this story about Kentucky Fried Chicken gift certificates, you know, that's still out there. What a shame that instead of being able to participate in the future of money and the future of, I don't even want to call it the future of money anymore. I would call it the future of human. The future of human is in this space. How to get involved in the future of human? Okay, well, that's the YouTube member area and Patreon. That's us, period. Now, that sounds kind of arrogant, but the YouTube channel is like the front end of a research project. You know, we've evolved. So when is the best time to get research? When it's already up, or when fear, greed is high and everyone is upset and they're just shaking you out, right? Like the whales are out there. You know why? Because you haven't heard one word from. You actually heard from Elon. Elon came out and said something. I was like, I don't think anybody really put 2 and 2 together that Elon may be saying something because he may be a buyer. You know what I'm saying? You haven't heard a word from Michael Saylor because I'm wondering if he's going to come out and wind up with a whole truckload that he bought down at the lows and hasn't said anything yet. No one is thinking about positive headline risk, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, somebody made $192 million shorting the market the day before the crash. Okay, fine. Now, how much money are you going to make if it turns around and goes up? Dario Martinez wants to look at Sushi Swap. By the way, anybody seen synthetics? Oh my God, synthetics. Right? All that old school stuff from 5 years ago. So, these wicks really make it kind of unbelievable. It makes it really hard to look at a daily chart, right? You kind of almost have to go to intraday charts. And wow, wouldn't you know? Little pause that refreshes. Would love to see Sushi Swap just pop off because you're at the apex of a triangle, and that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Now, that said, why don't we wait to see how it does? Because when you had things like synthetics and Zcash, you could kind of tell that it was going to happen because, can you, by the way, can you even find the giant wick down on this chart? This is synthetics, right? All this DeFi stuff that they built in 2020, they actually need it now. You'll know Sushi Swap is the thing when you get a candle like this. You get those big green candles and it's just off to the races. Zcash was very similar. Zcash on the daily chart, right? Try to get this in the middle of the screen because I know people are watching this on like a vertical arena. And of course, we appreciate all those people tuning in. But when you have Zcash, right? If you consider technical analysis is nothing more than explaining the nature of the price action. What is the nature of price action? Okay. When Zcash started to take off, right? You had a takeoff from support, but you had these chunky green candles, right? You had real buyers coming in. You see these big green candles, especially if they make a low in like the next 2 days or whatever gymnastics. Like, look at how they ate the dip in synthetics. You had 1 day to get a dip in this thing and it was gone. It's a very powerful lesson. So if you're in the sushi, you're looking for some kind of candle like this. That's what you're looking for. All right. And there are things, like some of the DeFi coins that we talk about. We were looking at Syrup, and we have other coins that we talk about. This is only the beginning of DeFi. This is only the beginning, right? And if you go to a tactical picture, say in the bigger coins, right? Tactical thing in the bigger coins. Hopefully I've been remembering to share. Okay. Super Matt, good morning from the UK. Okay. So one thing you'll notice on the tactical chart is every time you get a 9 bottom, they're after it. Now, they're not getting the follow through that you would hope for on the upside in ETH. So people are willing to buy it when it's down, but right now people are not willing to pay for higher prices. Pay higher prices, and you're going to need that, except in things like TAO, which simply and plainly do not go down. Okay, now this is a sign of a fundamental repricing, and if it ever did go down, it would be Christmas, but it probably won't, and here's why, right? I'm actually going to take the sequential off this chart for a second. So here's the giant wick down, okay? And then here is the first leg up, wave 1, according to the D wave. the second wave down, that's the correction. And then this is the 3 wave up, and this may be far from over. Because frequently the 3 wave is way bigger than the 1 wave. So this got a lot of room up here. And if you look at the weekly chart of this, like what has this thing really done net? It's just kind of been in this giant range, which, believe it or not, is what synthetics did back in 2020, right? Oh, I'm definitely not beefing with anybody. Ian put me on the air, man. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So, I want those guys to do well, and I want them to make it. And I'm glad Uncle Sugar got off his back. I am. I actually went to business school with somebody who was helping him with that. It's kind of funny. I found that out recently. Yeah, no, I want those guys to do well. Make no mistake about it, right? Also, Hand of G says ISO 20022, the institutional runs begins next spring. There are catalysts next year that people are not paying attention to. They're not. Like, privacy was supposed to be for next year. How are we looking on privacy now? People looking to buy the dip in privacy? How many privacy coins are there, really? 10? Antivirus still sits at $3 million. Now, I know they're doing a big airdrop of their Matrix DeFi privacy coin. Like, McAfee's widow and main guys are going to be launching not only this antivirus meme coin, right, which also has massive utility for privacy services like mixers and gift cards, as I've discussed, but they're also going to create, I don't know, I'm going to dare to call it Baby Monero. They're going to create Baby Monero that's also going to allow you to mint private stable coins, which you don't have in the market right now. And the track record of these guys building things is unbelievable. They've delivered on everything. So yeah, there's going to be a tokenomic shift, and there's a big airdrop, and you can have price volatility. But I can't believe, I'm drooling over this. Like a form of Monero or like a privacy coin that can also allow you to mint a private stable coin, a US dollar stable coin that you can use privately. And this is only the beginning, right? Antivirus guys are innovating. Other people are going to innovate. Privacy was like this fringe narrative, not anymore. And as I've said all along, I said this back in 2023. This narrative, you will not do anything in the metaverse. You will not do anything online with everybody seeing what your balance is. You will not. You absolutely will not. So if you think this is over, you're crazy. And again, the thing that's funny about Zcash, as much as I'm kind of like a Zcash fan, to say the least, and thank God on this down move, I went Zcash maximalist and it saved me from embarrassment, is, Zcash now has kind of a default privacy mode on its hot wallet, ZUSHI. But most of the transactions done on Zcash to date have not been private. They're not private. Right. Monero has a default privacy settings. And of course, they're all going back and forth on Twitter. And that is ridiculous. Right. It's like the debate between gold and Bitcoin. It's stupid. Zcash or Monero. Okay. Well, Monero's pure privacy, but that's hard to find except for Kraken. You know what I'm saying? Like it's tough to find Monero where you can get your hands on it. Zcash is everywhere. Fine. Privacy is going to be everywhere. You're not going to be able to stop this narrative. You can get antivirus on Phantom. You're going to be able to get their token Matrix on decentralized exchanges. You know what I'm saying? Like they're going to airdrop and then they're going to launch the chain at the end of the year. This is for real. Not to mention the fact, this just goes across the board. You're going to put an LLM inside of a robot operating system, and that's going to be artificial general intelligence. And what do you think is going to happen when those robots start walking around the grocery store, the auto repair shop, your office? People are going to get with these themes very quickly, right? The future is being traded right now. Like, look at the price action in TAO. Like everyone can say, oh, it's up. Oh, it's mooning. Oh, let's get some of that. Let's get 5x leverage. Okay. But what does it mean? Like everybody knew when Bitcoin went up, they had a sense of what that meant, but then they really got it, I think, when gold and silver went up. Like, hey, is there an issue with fiat currencies, or is there an issue out there that we don't know about? Or has the Fed got to spool up the printer to, replenish the emergency fund? Or are they going to have to cut rates aggressively because of what's going on with the labor market? Like they can't look at the economy through the lens of the AI build out. That's going to happen no matter what. They got to look at it in terms of like labor market disruption, and Powell is way behind the curve on this. That's why Bessett and all these guys are on the tape talking about who's taking over for Powell in May, because they may put the replacement on the tape to say, well, don't worry, Powell messed up. We're going to handle this when the new guy gets in. Okay, Grandpa Keeter is saying, what happened to Made in America? You know what, dude? Made in America hasn't gone anywhere. Because eventually, when Uncle Sugar decides to have Faction A stop fighting with Faction B, Made in America cryptos are going to come back. They're going to need that. I said this in January, and of course, they decided to drop it for 10 months to check my conviction, a new popular word on the YouTube member podcast. But, you got to understand something. Algorand, just as an example, unwound the entire election trade plus some. The entire November trade from last year plus some by making a new low. What happened to Made in America? You know what? They stopped everyone out. They stopped everyone out. Now, unfortunately, this is how it works. They push you out right before it turns, right? Like if you Google or Perplexity, Pluto in Aquarius, it's a complete change of how we do things. Sovereigns, money, humanity, AI is happening. You get a 13 bottom in Hedera and you think everything's fine, and then they do this. And who survived that? Nobody. I mean, hodlers looked at it and was like, well, that's rather unpleasant. But you don't get a candle like that if everybody was hodling. You don't. I mean, yeah, there's people hodling. Our people are hodling. Anybody who's listening to Toby is hodling. But that's still unpleasant. And how many people did it push out? And how many people are going to have to turn around and get back in again? A lot. This is like a huge theme, right? The more people they push out, the more people are going to have to come back in. Hand of God talking about QNT. Don't mind throwing out that there's a free one that, Toby's actually a big fan. QNT. It's an under-discussed topic. But, these ISO 2022 coins, you got a nice looking 9 bottom on QNT on the daily chart, right on top of DeMarc's support after they just torched everyone out. And if you look at the D wave, you can't possibly see it, so you're going to take my word for it. This was wave 1 up, and this is wave 2 down, right? There's a giant 2 for anybody on the vertical stream. I don't know if I can make it big enough. Can't probably, but that 2, yeah, that's the 2 wave, dude. That's the prelude. And you're like, what's a 2 wave? A 2 wave is a prelude to an impulsive, seemingly unending up move. So like a 2 wave, a 3 wave, excuse me. Did I share the screen? I don't know. Maybe I didn't. Okay. So again, here's QNT, wave 1 up, A, B, C. Classic zigzag. Wave 2 is the prelude to wave 3. What's wave 3? Slowly, but up only. Up only. Now, are they going to shake you out one more time? I don't know. Maybe. Right? I mean, there's always a reason to freak out in crypto. There's always a reason. Now, I think there's a reason to just be bold and take it from them. Take it from them. Someone says QNT is Australian. IOTA is another one. Like, there is like Eagle King. If he was here, he'd be giving me the list. I can, rattle them off. It's XRP, IOTA, XDC, Stellar, QNT, obviously, right? HBAR and Algorand. So not only are those made in America, those are a part of a group of cryptos that the banking system, is required to implement. Okay. Quinny the Rect says, Grok says we are close to a peak, then start the recession. See, dude, recession is some antiquated economic statistic. I got this from Jordy Visser, right? If you ask Grok, how do you calculate a recession? It'll say 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. Well, we're not going to have negative GDP growth because every big tech firm is borrowing all the money on the planet to build nuclear power plants, data centers the size of the island of Manhattan. That's not a joke. That is happening. There's a data center in Louisiana that is going to be built that is the size of the island of Manhattan. You are never going to have negative GDP growth when they're throwing this kind of money at that build out. They're not. Okay. But you can have a labor market disruption. You can have lingering inflation. You can have just like, even if inflation slows down, the 10x price increase at Costco is not going anywhere. Prices are not going to come down, maybe minus eggs, right? Prices are not coming down. So there's a swath of the population that has just been in a recession for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Eventually, the Fed's going to have to react to it. The orange man wants to react to it now. And you know what? Despite all these, the Fed's not independent, blah, blah, blah. You know what? They're right. The guy wants to step in because whatever's going on right now is way off the mark for humanity. Now, again, sitting around waiting for sovereigns to save you is not the right trade. Having you come in and save yourself is the right trade, right? Like, Jesse Oro, TAO, right? What follows TAO? That's the next question. That's probably the next Patreon report. What is the thing that is going to follow in the footsteps of all of these really, really big coins that are moving? Like, have you seen TAO on a thumbnail? You didn't see Zcash on thumbnails. Well, you saw them on mine, but you didn't see Zcash on a thumbnail. You didn't see Zcash trending. I still haven't seen Zcash on big YouTuber thumbnails yet. I haven't, because no one's taking it seriously, which is fine. That's good. Don't take it seriously. Okay. Now, some technical analysis that is a little bit concerning to me. Okay. Now, when you get these, sometimes when you have Elliott wave indicators, if the Elliott wave system doesn't know what to call something, it calls it an X wave. That's an oversimplification. Now, sometimes when you get an X wave, those X waves can get retested or it can go below there. I really hope that is not the case with Ethereum. However, it is theoretically possible. Now, how do we use that? Unless you start seeing like synthetics or Zcash or TAO candles, you don't have to buy strength today. Make the market show you that it wants to pay higher prices. Everybody wants to buy it when it's down 8%, but do they want to buy it when it's up? That's the question. The answer is no. Certain coins may be vulnerable to one more puke, but really, honestly, you can't be levered. You can't be levered long, unless you really believe in it. The time to add that type of stuff, and again, not investment advice, is after it's turned, right? Number 23, we love you too, man. Your Bass, very excited about the Matrix token from Antivirus. Dude, these guys are going to change the world. And when you take John McAfee, the author of the Declaration of Cryptocurrency Independence, he has a large language model that you can talk to on the antivirus website. When they put that LLM, which was trained on everything he ever said and did, which includes public and privately held information, they're going to put that LLM inside of a robot. Right now, you have coins associated with frogs, dogs, goats, farts. What happens when it's a walking, talking visionary? Let's put it that way, right? Like, you think these guys at Silicon Valley are going to get away with anything when you can get a robot McAfee on the tape to tell them all how it really is? You want to talk about a cryptocurrency influencer? I mean, that's just me, man. That's just me. Like, I'm fired up about that. That's what I'm fired up about. What are you fired up about? Well, my recommendation is you get fired up about something. Now, Jesse Oro is like, what about Ondo? Question with Ondo is, what about BlackRock? That's the question, right? Remember, BlackRock was very famous for telling people that they didn't want to build their own projects. They wanted to partner with somebody else. I mean, you realize that if you look at that's the Ondo perp. So the Ondo perp, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble calling up Ondo here. Okay. So here's Ondo on a weekly chart, right? And Ondo on a weekly chart, I thought it was going to do this. The old classic YouTube thumbnail, I was wrong. And instead, Ondo wiped out everything from where it got listed on an exchange. Everybody. This put pressure on everybody, including the hodlers, sharing the screen right now. So this put pressure on every single person who bought Ondo since February of last year. You got to think about what this means. Like, everyone's like, well, you could get a retest. Well, yeah, maybe. If there's somebody who went out of business and is forced to liquidate, which is not unreasonable. But what's the risk reward if BlackRock makes an announcement in this particular coin? And I think if you're also going to talk about Ondo, you also have to start talking about Chainlink. And what was the low in Chainlink? Where did Chainlink go? Like $16? Some ridiculous number. And Chainlink should be at 50. How can you have ETH? How can you have Bitcoin where it is? How can you have ETH back at the 2021 high and Chainlink at 19 when the 2021 high was $50? Do you need to be a technical analysis genius to know that something is way off there? Way off there, right? Hopefully you're seeing the screen, right? You seeing the screen? Okay. Queenie the Rect is not a big fan of Binance. Just remember, man. Just remember what happened. Here's what happened. Crypto got slow. There was no meme season. There was no activity. So they let everyone get as levered as they wanted because that was the only game in town. The only game in town in crypto was PvP, player versus player. So all the people in crypto who want to take advantage of this big move just got like wiped out. Got wiped out because the exchanges allowed absurd amounts of leverage. Now, don't complain about it, because if you complain about it too much, you know, you're going to wind up getting Gensler again, which is why they got to pass, you know, legislation that stops that. Right? Makes crypto legal. Okay. Someone is looking at AVO. I don't know if I have the right data for that. I'll have to come off the screen share and find CoinGecko. Listen, If you got tokens that you like, because again, there are tokens that are moving, right? Like some of our guys, you know, two guys here likes AVO and Virus. I think this our friend here has brought that up before, Virus. And I may have even looked at that with Toby. It's got the proverbial V from the movie at a 12 million market cap. Okay. Let's see what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if I have the right. Okay. Some sort of bizarre AI coin, not getting anything on the website. Okay. Somebody's caffeine AI rolling out soon. AI writing on the internet. Dude, there is, DBG Crypto wants to look at silver and gold. I would be happy to. This is a big trade. And I'm actually following a guy. Actually, we have to go to DeMark for silver and gold. Okay. Equities. Okay, so this is SLV weekly. Obviously, this is the entire history. And one thing you will note with SLV is, you know, this is a classic kind of DeMark trend. And SLV should top out next week. And if it doesn't, you have a fundamental problem with the mechanisms inside the silver market. You have a 9 and a 12. If you have a 9 and a 13, you should get a correction. I just think it's very simply that it's going to move to crypto. It's, you know, like you have a 9 top in GLD this week. That's the gold ETF. Equities people are radically underinvested in this stuff. Now, the ultimate thing for gold would be a weekly flush that acts as a pause that refreshes and then have it resume. Again, this is like big picture weekly stuff. Now, if you look at GLD on a daily chart, I mean, the top was supposed to be at the end of September, and it's just a classic kind of, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the word I can use on TV is. It's just like, it just gets very emotional. Like, let me see if I can get the gold futures contract up. I think that's a delay, but that's okay in this particular case. Now, what is scary about the gold futures contract is if you look at a daily chart, I don't see a topping signal. I don't see it. Not on the daily chart. I don't know what happens if we go to weekly. You know, weekly, it's still the 9 top, so you could get the pause that refreshes. But there's no topping signal on the daily chart. None. Right? What a freak show, right? I mean, I can look at the silver futures contract. Now, if you're in crypto, you're probably wondering, why do I care about this? Listen to me. ETH follows gold and silver. ETH follows gold and silver. Now, in silver, this is emotional, right? You have the 13 top over here. You have this big emotional thrust through there. That does have kind of a toppy feel to it. It does. Okay, if you look at the weekly silver futures chart, it's the same as SLV. You know, the next rally should be it, and I'm sure DeMark is very popular in legacy. Now, all of this said, you have to consider what happens if the topping signals don't top the market, right? Because everyone will see the topping signal. Everyone knows it's overdone. Trading people will probably try to, you know, they're going to want to take their money. It's fine. My hope is that they actually range trade, and that rampaging bid switches over to crypto. Okay. So Trisha, sorry about the screen. Hopefully I shared it all, right? That you got the silver and gold stuff. You know, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said, okay, for crypto following gold and silver. Greetings from DeFi Villa, where we're laughing all the way to the bank in synthetics. And synthetics, a lot of people don't notice, right? The best synthetic story I have is when my former employer first came out with its rankings. I remember being on a live stream, right, with Ben Armstrong, who at the time was like, you know, huge. And we were looking at what the system came out as one of the top ranked coins, and it was synthetics. Not because it wasn't an uptrend, but because their AI at the time learned how to read two waves. And it saw synthetics trading in a box formation, not unlike what's going on right now in TAO on a weekly basis. Like if you look at TAO now, it looks like the synthetics daily chart from back in 2020. Not exactly, but this like boxy range. You know, and again, in TAO, you got the 13 bottom and you got the 9 bottom. They graciously stopped everyone out, right? That square range. And I remember BitBoy going, oh, wow, look at synthetics. Let's go. You know, synthetics leads once again. What's old is new again. Remember, CryptoPunks, everyone knows CryptoPunks are blue chip art, right? Wrong. CryptoPunks back in 2017 came out and they sat there rotting on the shelf for 3 years. No one paid any attention to it, which is why in one of our reports, it's coming out soon in Patreon Platinum. Remember how I gave you Dia, the Oracle? There are coins that have done nothing. There are coins that are going up, that are consolidating for the next run. And then there's a whole bunch of coins that have done nothing. And people are telling me this altcoin space can't move. Dude, this altcoin space can move. Hand of G is digging the channel. Grandpa Keeter wants DeFi perp. Dude, I think TradingView retired the DeFi perp symbol. I don't have it anymore. Let me just check. Let me see if it's under indexes. Okay, I do have total DeFi market cap. So here's a 2-week chart of total DeFi market cap. And what, ladies and gentlemen, do you see? Maybe something akin to what's going on in the ETH chart, but better. You see a square range. Total D. We covered a DeFi. This is a 2-week chart. And I'm going to share the screen right now. Okay, so here's total DeFi market cap. You have a square range. You had a lot of people kind of heaving it, not interested. And you got to ask yourself, I call this squiggle TA. Someone tell me, after listening to Toby, and just from a common sense point of view, based on what we think of legacy, that this can't just do that. Right? Just go vertical. Right? You listen into Citibank whine that there's too much talk about stablecoins. Yeah, that's because they're behind. Right? And if there's any problem with any of these big institutions, the amount of people who are going to be incentivized to move into the DeFi space with all these stablecoins. Why does anybody doubt a guy like Bessent, the Treasury Secretary? Why? No, no one's taking him seriously, which is unbelievable because he's just like this, this huge 6'5" guy who, supposedly actually has, he's kind of an aggressive dude. Let's put it that way. When he says he wants, trillions in stable coins, where are all those stable coins going to go? They're just all going to float around in the ether? No, dude, they're going in DeFi protocols. They're going into DeFi protocols, right? You're going to deposit them at the, First Citizens Bank? No. They're going to go into DeFi protocols. DeFi protocols. Okay. WWJ says virus is many games, but that is the main token. Okay. We'll be sure and look that up. Let me see if I can find it. And simultaneously, remember to share the screen. Sorry about that in advance. Okay. I'm not going to try to pull it up. You can leave a comment. Eagle King will find it for sure. He's not available today. All right. Let's wrap this up. If they hit the market again, let them. Let them. If you're after a coin and you love it, get after it. Somebody here is saying, ZBEC. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. I'm running out of time. I can't do the TA. Simple fact of the matter is, if they hit the market again, it's a gift. If they don't hit the market again, or they don't hit your coin again, that is a signal. Whales are out there. You haven't heard one word from them. That's because they're buying everything. They'll be back on the tape when Bitcoin turns around and follows the Gann roadmap, which you can get in Patreon Platinum. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the market update for this evening. We will see you next time.